Hello, BookTube, and welcome to the first part of our read-along of J.R.R. Tolkien's 1977 posthumous book, The Silmarillion. Posthumous in here in italics and air quotes because Tolkien had been working on this thing his whole life. These are the stories and the mythologies and the genealogies. This is the legendarium that underscores his two great works of fantasy, The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. Won't have many of the same characters, but this is the mythological universe building that lies behind those two famous stories. Tolkien wrote this in bits and pieces, a good deal, many chunks in here, significantly predate anything else that he wrote. But the book itself was pulled together and made by Christopher Tolkien and also by Guy Gavriel Kay into an odd mixture of didactic, informative segments and narratives, stories like the kind that we get in The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. Difficult to describe to a non-Tolkien fan, difficult very much to recommend. There's almost no way to recommend it. The closest thing you can get, the godsend to those of you who want to recommend stories from the Silmarillion to someone who doesn't know them, doesn't know The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings really well, would be the little books that have been carved out of this over the years by the Tolkien estate and Christopher Tolkien. The Children of Hurin was a New York Times bestseller because it tells a smaller story set in this world. But there is a rolling kind of grandeur to reading the whole thing. It's just something that I believe, I hate to say it because it sounds gatekeepy, but I believe there's only something that can be done for pleasure by Tolkien fans. So I'm assuming it's only Tolkien fans that are watching this, my second read-along of the Silmarillion. For this part, we're just going to do these in parts. We're not going to worry about whether or not we get through the whole, a discrete month. We're just going to keep doing a barrage of read-alongs. And for the first part here, we are reading the first two brief parts of the Silmarillion, the Ainulindalë and the Valaquenta. And the Ainulindalë is the story of the gods of Middle-earth. One god in particular, the great one god, Eru Ilúvatar, and the beings that are his chief creations, these other gods who are made by him. The Vala are made by him, the Ainur are made by him. They have an enormous amount of superpowers. They can rend the earth and create stars and move all sorts of things in their being and shape the world. But they are subservient to Eru. And in a time beyond time, long before there was time, long before there was a world, in the depths of the void, in the depths of these other realms, they start to sing. Eru proposes a theme and says, let you all now sing your different themes for my pleasure. It's not stated very strongly, but nevertheless, it's pretty clear that the Ainur have to do what Eru tells them. There's nice themes, hesitant themes, slow themes, fast themes. We're going to see this an evil theme, but it doesn't appear to be an option that they can say, I don't feel like singing. And so they do. They start singing. One theme after another. It's quintessential Tolkien, who had such music so ingrained in his heart. The world, literally the universe, begins with song. That is so quintessential. It's such an elegant thing for him to do. That the world is literally born out of song. A theme arises, but there is a little discordant note. It comes from one of the Ainur, Melkor, who is the greatest of them all, but also evil, self-regarding. And he introduces a discordant theme, and Eru doesn't like it. First he's curious, then the second time he hears the theme, he's a little bit disappointed, and the third time he's angry. And we're told that he's sitting in his chair, that he has ears, that he has a face, that he frowns, that he has eyes. So these are humanoid gods, even though we're also told that that's just a form that they put on, and that they don't need to. They are immaterial energy beings. Tolkien describes them with faces, I guess, because it's a natural narrative thing to do. You will see that in most mythologies, even the ones that are outright that their gods have no human form, they'll still do that. And because of that war of discordant themes, it almost seems like Eru is not in control. And that this is something he did not expect, that is going to mar the musical creation that he has in mind. But no, we're told he assures them that is not true. He tells the Ainur, behold your music. He takes them out into the void to show them that, unbeknownst to them, their singing has been creating a world. Ea. And he says, behold your music. And he showed them a vision, giving them sight where before was only hearing, and they saw a new world made visible before them, and it was globed amid the void, and it was sustained therein, but was not of it. And as they looked and wondered, this world began to unfold its history, and it seemed to them that it lived and grew. But when the Ainur had gazed for a while and were silent, Iluvatar said again, behold your music. This is your minstrelsy. Each of you shall find contained herein, amid the design that I set before you, all those things which it may seem that he himself devised or added. And thou, Melkor, will discover all the secret thoughts of thy mind, and wilt perceive that they are but a part of the whole and tributary of its glory. In other words, Iluvatar tells them, you may think that what you're looking at, a very interesting detail here that we're told that the Ainur could not see before he shows them the world. It's literally the first thing they see. They could only hear before that. But he tells them, you may think that you each added individual themes to this, but actually it's all me. It's all working to a grander theme that you can't see, but that has always been in my mind. Which I'll get back to. we get more of the same of that as Eru unfolds his plan for Ea, which is that living beings will come forth in this world. The firstborn, who are the elves, and the followers, who are the men, mortal men. This is his plan, and these plans can only be enhanced and fiddled with around the edges by the Ainur. They are already in Iluvatar's grand design. And there's nothing that any of their singing can do about that is not part of that design. We are told that the Ainur who go to Ea, the ones that go to Ea in order to walk around in it and see what it's like, are the Valar. And when they go there, Melkor goes with them. And at first it looks like he's going just to help order the place and to beautify the place. Why it would need ordering or beautifying, I don't know. We're told that it's still full of fire. Clearly Tolkien working in a little etiology about a molten earth long before there was air or continents, but we're told that it's an empty, barren, lava-fueled place, which is not what any of these Ainur would have sung or dreamed or imagined. Hard to imagine that Iluvatar would have done it either. But they go into this world, and Melkor shows his hand. He says, and when the Valar entered into Ea, they were at first astounded and at a loss, for it was as if naught was yet made, which they had seen in vision, and all was but on point to begin, and yet unshaped, and it was dark. For the great music had been but the growth and flowering of the thought of the timeless halls, and the vision only a foreshadowing. And now they had entered in at the beginning of time, and the Valar perceived that the world had been but foreshadowed and foresung, and they must achieve it. So began their great labors in wastes unmeasured and unexplored, and in ages uncounted and forgotten, until the deeps of time, in the midst of the vast halls of Ea, there came to be that hour and that place where was made the habitation of the children of Iluvatar. And in this work the chief part was taken by Manwë and Aule and Ulmo. But Melkor too was there from the first, and he meddled in all that was done, turning it, if he might, to his own desires and purposes. And he kindled great fires. When therefore earth was yet young and full of flame, Melkor coveted it, and he said to the other Valar, this shall be my own kingdom, and I shall name it unto myself. And they resist him. Manwë is his brother, almost his equal in power. And Arome and Ulmo and all of these other Valar, they resist that. No, you can't do that. But the most that we get in the Ainulindalë is that is the beginning of the world, that is the beginning of time, and it begins in strife. It's not a peaceful beginning like in Genesis. And then we move on to a brief section called the Valaquenta, which is about the Valar. It talks about who they are, what their names are, what their provinces are. It's basically Edith Hamilton's mythology, where we go over who's the goddess of the spring, who's the god of the hunt, who's the god of the dead, who's the god of the sea. Names that will come up but they are rapidly going to lose interest or foothold in the world, and only occasionally show up as quite literal Deus Ex Machina. So the Valaquenta makes quick reading. It's 5 minutes to read through it. But the Ainulindalë has questions in it. For me, always when I reread it, it has questions for me. And all those questions spring from one lament of mine. It's beautifully written. Absolutely beautifully written in that rolling kind of King James cadence. But it shouldn't be there. I wish that it weren't. The Ainulindalë especially, the Valaquenta is, I think, a reflection of Tolkien's love of the Elder Edda and the Prose Edda, of the mythology of Homer and Hesiod. But the Ainulindalë is it's his response to creating a world that must, according to him, have gods in it. I think that was an absolutely essential part of his own worldview, of our world. And so, when he's remaking things in his own image for the Legendarium, for the Lord of the Rings, he can't do without the idea, not only of a head god, in this case there's a pantheon, but I believe Christianity has a pretty big pantheon too, but also a head god. And not just any head god, but a head god who is not only enigmatic about what he knows and doesn't know when he has no reason to be, but also that knows everything that's coming. In other words, Tolkien takes all the problems that are completely unavoidable in the standard vision of the Christian God as being all-knowing, all-foreseeing, all-loving, all-caring, and all-powerful. Those things don't go together. And that has been causing Christianity problems for 2,000 years. Tolkien takes the essential problems of that, the essential contradictions of having an all-knowing God who sees the future, and just duplicates them in the Silmarillion when he need not have done so. We need not have Eru Ilúvatar. When we do, well, then everything bad that happens is part of his plan. And so you have the problem of evil imported into this world where it need not ever have been. It also raises other questions that are also endemic to Christianity and every other major religion. Who is Eru? What is Eru? And he made the Valar. We're told that he's the only being who has the flame imperishable. He's the only being who can make a thing that can live on its own when its maker is not looking, when its maker is not paying attention to it and making it do things. It's not a slave. His creations are not slaves to his will. Think about, for instance, much later on, Sauron in The Lord of the Rings. He has all sorts of slaves, but they're totally dependent on his will. Eru, we're told, is the only being who isn't like that. If he imbues a creature with the flame imperishable, it is an independent life. Okay, so he must have done that to the Valar, to the Ainur. He must have made them at some point. But why? Why would he do that? And why would he make Ea? Why would he care about elves and men? Why would he do any of that? It's the same question that you have with the Christian God. Why? Sure, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, but why? Why would he bother? Creating something like that in order to have it implies a lack, and Christians are forbidden to believe that anything is lacking from God. Same thing seems to me to be true with Eru Ilúvatar. Why would he do any of this? And if he did, well, doesn't that make him a monster? If all the evil that's coming out of this vision is part of his song? And if it doesn't make him a monster, well, then all Tolkien had to do was add a little line in saying that he didn't know what was coming. But no, instead we just mutatis mutandis move the problems of Christianity into the mythology of Middle-earth. Fortunately, it doesn't come up all that often. Aside from these early chapters, Eru makes one very noticeable appearance later in the story, much later, but not between them. The Valar, sure, but not Eru, a god who could erase all confrontation. He is unopposable. He is to the Valar what the Valar are to ordinary people, to elves and men. So he annihilates drama, and Tolkien wisely leaves him out because of that. But that's all we get in these first two segments, is the story of the creation of everything, and a rundown of who the characters are, who the Valar are. So that will bring us to our next reading. We're going to go to the table of contents here. We just did those two first segments quickly. But the next long segment of this book is the Quenta Silmarillion, which does have stories in it. It's not like this. It's not like Genesis or Edith Hamill's mythology. It actually has stories. Now, the Quenta Silmarillion is 12 chapters long. So I thought we would go to chapter 12, all the way to chapter 12, which is called Of Men. So we'll go all the way to chapter 12 of the Quenta Silmarillion next time, as we move forward in our read-along of Silmarillion, the Steve-marillon. So I'll wrap this up for now, and I will see you then. Thank you, BookTube.